In the resilience myth, Soraya Chemaly sets the stage with a scene many readers will recognize, a young girl being told to toughen up after falling on the playground, while a boy in the same situation is offered immediate comfort. From this everyday moment, Chemaly begins to unspool a sweeping narrative that challenges everything we think we know about what it means to be strong. She explores how resilience has been traditionally framed as stoic endurance, emotional suppression, and an almost superhuman ability to keep going no matter the cost. But this, she argues, is not true resilience. It is a distortion, a myth that punishes vulnerability and glorifies suffering. Chemaly walks us through the historical roots of this myth, tracing it back to industrial capitalism, colonial conquest, and patriarchal systems that demanded silence from the suffering. The story of resilience, as we've inherited it, was forged in a world that needed compliant workers, not emotionally whole people. She contrasts this with lesser-known stories, of mutual aid among enslaved communities, of indigenous practices of communal healing, of women's resistance networks during wartime, all forms of resilience built on connection rather than isolation. Through vivid personal anecdotes, Chemaly draws the reader into her own journey of unlearning the myth. She recounts how, as a young woman, she prided herself on being unflappable, on powering through illness, grief, and burnout. It wasn't until her body began to shut down under the pressure that she realized she had internalized a definition of strength that was slowly killing her. Her wake-up call wasn't dramatic, just a quiet, unbearable weariness, proof, she says, that false resilience doesn't break you all at once. It erodes you piece by piece. The book introduces readers to the concept of relational resilience, which emphasizes emotional honesty, interdependence, and collective care. Chemaly tells the story of a domestic abuse survivor who rebuilt her life not through solitary willpower, but through a circle of women who shared food, childcare, and even job leads. This narrative dismantles the Hollywood trope of the lone warrior and replaces it with something far more sustainable and real, the idea that true strength is found in the web of people who catch you when you fall. Drawing on the fields of sociology, psychology, and neuroscience, Chemaly explains how the myth of resilience is especially damaging to women, people of color, and LGBTQ+ individuals. These groups are often expected to not only survive injustice but to do so gracefully, without complaining, and with immediate bounce back. The book paints the image of a society that valorizes the strong black woman or the stoic immigrant, while refusing to examine why these people need to be so strong in the first place. In one of the book's most powerful sections, Chemaly tells the story of a community ravaged by environmental disaster. The government failed them, the media ignored them, and their only recourse was each other. What emerged was not despair but a network of mutual aid that included shared housing, collective childcare, and healing circles. Chemaly uses this example to argue that resilience must be redefined as the capacity to organize, advocate, and rebuild. Not just to survive silently. She also explores how modern wellness culture has co-opted the resilience narrative, turning it into a consumer product. Apps, retreats, and Instagram influencers sell the idea that with enough meditation and green smoothies, you can bounce back from anything. Chemaly is not dismissive of self-care, but she is deeply critical of how it has been depoliticized and individualized. Real resilience, she insists, can't be bought or branded, it has to be built, and that building is a communal act. Throughout the book, Chemaly weaves in voices from around the world, Palestinian mothers under occupation, Syrian refugees, queer youth in conservative towns, each offering a counterpoint to the myth. Their stories don't follow the tidy arc of triumph over adversity but instead reflect something messier and truer, the daily work of surviving, resisting, connecting, and healing. These narratives force the reader to ask not, how do I toughen up? But, who helps me stay human? In examining resilience through the lens of gender, race, and power, Chemaly makes a compelling case that the very people most burdened by hardship are often those least allowed to express pain. She cites studies showing that doctors routinely underestimate the pain of black patients, or that schools are more likely to punish rather than support girls who show signs of distress. These are not personal failings but systemic ones, and any conversation about resilience that ignores them is incomplete at best, harmful at worst. As the book progresses, Chemaly shifts from critique to construction. She offers a vision of a society built on care infrastructures, universal childcare, paid leave, community mental health support, designed to catch people before they fall too far. She uses the metaphor of a trampoline rather than a safety net. Resilience, in this new model, isn't just about not breaking, it's about being able to bounce back with momentum, supported by a web of shared resources. In a deeply personal chapter, Chemaly revisits her childhood and reflects on the women who quietly modeled relational resilience. Her grandmother, who always had a pot of soup ready for a neighbor in need. Her aunt, who organized informal lending circles when banks refused women credit. These weren't grand gestures, but they were revolutionary acts in a world that wanted them to fend for themselves. Chemaly honors their labor and draws a straight line between their care and her ability to finally begin healing. The book closes not with a triumphant declaration but a quiet invitation, to unlearn, to reach out, to redefine what it means to be strong. Chemaly calls on readers not just to rethink their own narratives of resilience but to advocate for structures that make care possible. It is not enough to survive, we must ask how we are helping others to survive too. The power of the resilience myth lies not in giving readers a checklist but in opening their eyes to the invisible scaffolding that holds true resilience in place. It is a call to action, yes, but also a comfort, affirming that our fragility is not a flaw, it is a signal, a reminder, that we were never meant to do this alone. With lyrical prose and sharp analysis, Chemaly dismantles the harmful stories we've been told about strength and replaces them with something tender, radical, and real. Her storytelling, both intimate and expansive, transforms the reader not by urging them to harden, but by giving them permission to soften, to lean in, and to trust that being held is just as noble as standing tall. By the end of the book, the myth of resilience as brute endurance lies in pieces. In its place stands something much more durable, a vision of strength rooted in mutual recognition, shared struggle, and the radical possibility of healing together.